Hey everyone, Palantir just dropped a big announcement. Their new offering, AIP, Artificial Intelligence Platform. We're going to look at the intro video that dropped earlier this week, and I'll give you my hot takes. Let's jump into it. First of all, I think there is a missed opportunity here in naming it. AIP, one, AIP is hard to say. Two, Artificial Intelligence Platform, that's too generic, that's too bland. I can see as a technical person, as a data scientist, as an AI professional, why a platform like Palantir will be helpful in leveraging large language models, but the name itself does not capture it here. I think there's an opportunity to create a new category around what Palantir can do. My friends over at Palantir have to talk to my other friends over at Category Design Advisors, and I think they're going to have a lot of ideas in terms of how to help this stick out in the minds of users and buyers and key decision makers. So that's the first thing right there is I think we can name this a little bit differently, a little bit more compellingly.
AIP empowers organizations to use large language models and other cutting-edge AI safely and securely. The platform allows you to do three things. First, AIP lets you deploy large language models and any other AI within your private network anchored in your private data.
This is a big deal. Right now, ChatGPT is all the rage, but if you're a large organization, you can't have your employees inputting sensitive information into ChatGPT because you don't know how that data is going to be managed. You don't know if it's going to be used to train future models. And then also you don't want to put sensitive IP data into ChatGPT right now. Again, you don't know how that's going to be used to service other ChatGPT users that are not within your organization. So if you are a large enterprise and you want to leverage large language models, because there is a lot of potential behind large language models, then you need to either take an open source large language model that's already out there available, bring that in-house and train it on your own data and host it within your own ecosystem. That's one route. And another route is to train your own large language model from scratch. That's the route that Bloomberg has taken with Bloomberg Chat. I covered that recently on my YouTube channel. All right, quick edit here. OpenAI just dropped two announcements that are relevant here. Number one is that they're allowing users to omit their chat from future training on additional models that come out from OpenAI, additional ChatGPT models. And then number two, which is also very important, is that OpenAI is going to be releasing something called ChatGPT Business that is looking to address these issues that enterprises have about putting their sensitive data or IP data into ChatGPT. So two quick announcements that I thought were relevant to this part of the video. You can check out the video for that. If you're looking for open source large language models, Databricks just announced DALL-E, that's open source. Hugging Face has a model called Bloom. Amazon has announced a model called Bedrock. And so those are other options for you to consider if you don't want to train a large language model yourself from scratch. And that's what I would advise. I would advise starting with an open source model first and then thinking about how you might train one from scratch. But yes, this is a very real pain point for a lot of companies. How do you harness and leverage the powerful capabilities of large language models internally on your own data in a sensitive, controlled type of fashion? And I think this is what AIP is trying to get to. So I think the pain point is definitely there, and it's only going to grow.
It helps you create a full fidelity, real-time representation of all of the concepts, actions, and decisions within your business. Every truck, every warehouse, every shipment, every delay that can then be used by AI. Second, it enables you to define the ground rules around which data LLMs and AI can and cannot see, and what they can and cannot do on behalf of humans. You can do this based on data sensitivity, laws and regulations, and competencies of the model. AIP provides the framework for AI to hand off tasks to other trusted task-specific models, as well as to trusted humans.
Okay, this is a very nuanced concept, safe AI handoff. So a little bit of context here. One way that we envision large language models changing how we interact with applications is this concept of chat UX, which is a little bit hard to explain, but the idea is that because large language models can produce code, that code can be used to automate and generate a sequence of steps that we can feed into a backend or into an application and help the user get to their intended result faster. So right now, when you log into an application, you want to know like, oh, is this investment a good investment? Yes or no? And you probably have to do 15 different steps within an application, like a Bloomberg terminal, to do that. You have to look at the income statement. You have to do some analysis. You have to compare it to peers. You have to do some statistical work. You have to do some graphing, some charting, some research. There's a lot of things that you have to do, but you have to do that as a user. Theoretically, with ChatGPT like models within organizations, you can streamline a lot of that. So you can just ask the terminal in a prompt type of fashion, and it's going to go out and do a whole bunch of different tasks and return to you the end output. Of course, for you to review, and also the work for you to review, but a lot of the underlying clicking and analysis and work that you would do as a user, you get to offload that to the large language model that is powering that functionality. So the safe AI handoff concept, I think, is very interesting, but it requires a little bit of nuance, and I think a bit of an appreciation of where we're going with large language models.
Finally, with this great power comes great responsibility. AIP brings industry-leading guardrails to control, govern, and trust the AI-powered business of tomorrow. AIP automatically captures a full digital footprint of all AI inputs, outputs, and actions, including which AI was used for which decision, which humans were in the loop, and how they align with specific business purposes.
Folks, this is going to be even more important as AI gets more scrutiny, more regulation. Companies are going to have to show their receipts. You're going to have to show what insights came from what models, what are the model versions for each one of those models, and in particular the one that was used, and what was the data that was used to train those different models, and what was the input data into that model that led to that particular insight or output, and what decisions were made off of that insight. And so I think companies are going to have to show this. If you get some scrutiny and you have to show how you came to a conclusion, you're going to have to show all this backtrace and all this detail. And so having a platform like Palantir, I think is going to be helpful there.
Let's take a look at it in action. In this demo, let's say you're a leader at a US-based manufacturing company with customers all over the country. You've just received an alert that a hurricane is forecasted to hit one of your major distribution centers in the south, and you'll need to shut it down.
What's going to be interesting is to appreciate how these large language models are going to interact with the outside world, because here we're putting in a prompt on Hurricane Cynthia, which is happening in real time. The large language model has to access the internet to get that information. So what does that look like? How do you put guardrails on that? Right now, the current version of ChatGPT that's available to most people does not have access to the internet, so for a number of different reasons. And so how are you going to do that internally within your own large language models? I'm not sure there's a right answer to it, but it'd be interesting to discuss that a little bit further.
You want to know whether you should accelerate, delay, or cancel orders to your customers and other remediations you can take. Here in AIP Terminal, you can ask questions and collaborate with a large language model, or LLM. To what extent will Hurricane Cynthia affect our distribution centers in Louisiana? As well as follow-ups. How does this impact?
Again, AIP Assistant. Let's just call it Palantir Chat or something else. AIP Assistant. I know it's a small thing, but I think these things matter for our user experience. I think it could be named a little bit better. Let's call it Palantir Chat.
Impact customer orders and associated revenue. Under the hood, as you ask questions, the LLM is able to traverse a data foundation powered by...
This is important to note that it doesn't matter how powerful the AI models are. If you haven't done the upfront work of data integration and data cleaning and processing and all the other work that you need to do in order to make the most use of that AI, it's just not going to matter. So there's a lot of upfront work that has to happen for you to get results from these large language models as well as other AI technologies, and it's oftentimes underappreciated, but I'm glad they're showing it here because you need to pipe all this data in and make it readily available for your AI services.
By real-time data feeds from all across your business. Importantly, you can control which parts of the business the LLM has access to. For example, we can see here that although the data foundation contains employee-level PII data, the LLM can't see or access that data. This has been informative, but you want to understand your options and take action. You can ask AIP to simulate a baseline scenario. What would happen if we shut down the affected distribution center? It uses a transportation network optimizer model and shows you the impact on back.
Couple of questions to consider, and again, I'm not sure if we should be showing this in this intro video, but as we're thinking about leveraging large language models within enterprise, we have to think about how do we validate the outputs from these large language models, and who does that? So what I'm seeing right now is from the perspective from a business person or a data analyst. What is their process for them to double check the output and the recommendation from the large language model to make sure that they're getting the right answer? One of the drawbacks from large language models is something called hallucination, where the large language model will tell you very confidently a particular answer, but it can be way off. We need a mechanism to validate that and to track that, particularly if you're making critical business decisions. That's number one. Number two is, how are we going to be creating labels and feedback on these different outputs from the large language model that is specific to a company's workflow and data, such that that large language model is going to get better over time for that particular company. As I'm looking at the UI here for AIP or Palantir Chat, I'm going to call it PChat. For PChat, I don't see an option for me to give it feedback and say, hey, this was a good recommendation. If you look at the ChatGPT interface, they have that, you can give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and you can input it why it was good or what could be improved. So I'd be interested in seeing how the Palantir folks are going to integrate that into PChat, and how other companies are going to do that as well, because that's going to be a lot of the value, a lot of the reason why you're going to go through the trouble of bringing these large language models in-house, is that because you're expecting those models to get very good at your particular job over time and just become more valuable to you and your organization. So maybe there's an opportunity to highlight that a little bit more here.
Backlogs, revenue, and commitments, and highlights the impact on your highest priority customers. You can also see which specific orders can be seamlessly fulfilled by other distribution centers. This is a good start, but you want to do more. You want to know if you should charter additional trucks to increase the volume of deliveries before and after the closure. What are some options for chartering additional transportation for order fulfillment, and the impact? AIP offers 3 simulated courses of action alongside estimated cost. Option B, a 20% truck capacity increase, seems to have the best cost-benefit trade-off, and your highest priority orders will all be taken care of. After validating it further, you propose your plan for cross-functional sign-off for manufacturing, supply chain, and customer service.
I think it's just very neat that we have this technology that is going to make it easier for non-technical people to navigate a lot of options and a lot of technical applications. So Chat UX is going to be a big deal.
Let's look under the hood again. Many of these steps required a deep understanding of how your business works. LLMs alone don't have the right context, and we definitely don't want the LLM.
Right, this is very neat. So in most organizations, you're going to have a number of different models that you can leverage to come up with certain decisions. And which model do you choose? And that's sometimes tough. And to the extent that we can leverage a large language model to help us at least pick the top 5 models that we should be using for this particular problem, that I think is going to be very enabling for non-technical people, or people that are sort of generalists and that are looking across the business and not hyper-focused on one particular area.
LLM to give answers not grounded in reality. AIP connects LLMs with trusted models across your business, including forecasting, optimization, machine learning, and standard procedures. AIP then facilitates a secure handoff between these models as needed, which keeps each model in its own lane. This lets you then use the LLM plus all of your other models in concert safely to enable reasoning through the different scenarios and courses of action. Also,
this is very neat because oftentimes you're daisy chaining different models together to get to one particular solution. So if you need to make a decision in terms of whether or not you're going to ship new hardware to a place, it's usually 5 different models that you have to consult and do some additional analysis, and then you come up with a decision. And they're showing you how they're daisy chaining all 5 models. And I guess the large language model is doing that. And it's just showing you how they did it. So that's an opportunity for you to check the math or check the thinking of the large language model. But still, showing that daisy chaining is real life type of application.
Stakeholders have approved your plan, and you now want your operational team to get cracking. Much of the chartering and rerouting has already happened through automation as you authorized. The operational team can monitor from their dedicated workspace and adjust as any surprises come up. They'll also need to stay in the loop for certain steps by policy, such as verifying customer consent for early deliveries. As they make decisions and updates, routing and optimization models rerun autonomously on their behalf within the limits around key KPIs. As decisions are made, they are continually pushed to your operational systems, triggering real-world action. They're also logged for future review. Let's go under the hood one last time and look at...
Very neat. Okay, so check this out. This is their large language model space. So this is where you would pipe in open source large language models and train on your own data within your own network. So DALL-E, that was released by Databricks. GPT Neo, I think that's Google. You have open source models like Amazon's Bedrock as well. And so now you have some more options as an enterprise to bring in those models and train them on your own data. The alternative is to build your own model from scratch like Bloomberg has done, but I would not advise that for most organizations. I think getting these off-the-shelf large language models to start off with is a good place to get your hands dirty.
What enables your organization to safely govern LLMs and other AI to assist you through scenarios such as this one. Here, in the AIP control panel, you can set the guardrails and limits per model, including which data objects they...
Right, so you can see here this FLAN T5 created by Google.
can see, which actions they can recommend or take on behalf of humans, which tasks and workflows they are trusted to drive, who can use them, how cost is attributed, and so on. You and your organization have formed an optimal...
All right, so overall, I think Palantir is heading in the right direction here. Enterprises are going to need a lot of help in terms of unlocking the capabilities and the abilities of large language models, but they have different requirements. It's got to be secure, it's got to be safe, it's got to be trackable. Palantir, with their focus on data integration and being sort of the abstraction layer on top of the entire enterprise and creating a nice, safe, secure ecosystem, I think they're very well positioned to be a company that helps organizations do that. I would say that there's room for improvement on the naming and the branding and the category. I think that's a big deal. I think that's oftentimes appreciated. No one doubts that the Palantir team can pull something like this off. Technically, everybody knows they're super, super sharp. And so there's no real doubts on the technical side. But I think the branding and the marketing and the positioning, I think, is going to be somewhat problematic. And it's important. Many technical people don't appreciate how important marketing and branding is. You know, it's kind of interesting because Peter Thiel is a founder of Palantir, and if you read 0 to 1, he has a chapter in there around how technical people underappreciate sales, which I think is totally true, having been at a unicorn startup. But I think it's also true that many technical people underappreciate marketing and branding, and I think this is an example of that actually over at Palantir, which is somewhat ironic. In any respect, I think Palantir is heading in the right direction, so continue to track AIP and how this unfolds, because there's just going to be a lot of need for companies and teams to get onboarded with large language models and really unlock the power for their enterprise using ChatGPT-like functionality. All right, what do you think? Do you like the name AIP, Artificial Intelligence Platform? Do you think I'm being too nitpicky there? What questions do you have about large language models within enterprise? Who else do you think is doing this particularly well? And happy to hear all your questions and your comments. So thank you very much, and talk to you soon.